All right. 27-17 is the final. Washington tops Michigan in what? A purple out today? I don't know. It was a crazy game to dissect it. I put it in like three parts, fellas. We're gonna do a deep dive right away. You got the first part. Washington comes out firing. They score the two touchdowns. They go up 14-0. Then part two, Orgy gets replaced by Jack Tuttle, the guy who's in his seventh year of eligibility. Sparks the Wolverines. They end up leading 17-14 midway through the third quarter. Then you got the fourth quarter, the third part, where you got the two turnovers there that led to the last 10 points of the ball game. It was just a crazy game, the way just to dissect it. But Michigan ends up losing 27-17. I'm going to give Sam Webb the first dibs on his initial thoughts on this loss.
Yeah, guys. My initial thoughts is too many mistakes. I mean, mistakes are gonna doom you anyway, but especially on the road. It's not like they didn't make them either. They had the missed field goal, they had the blocked field goal, they had the interception. Great play by Ernest Hausman. But they were at home. When you're at home, you're dealing with house money. When you're on the road and you make the mistakes that Michigan made, the two crucial turnovers that they made, the penalties there at the end there on defense, that's gonna be crucial. And ultimately, that did Michigan in. That was their undoing. You just can't have that many mistakes on the road when you're a team that's clearly still trying to find itself, especially on offense. Josh Newkirk is, they went in, still trying to solidify their identity on offense. It was the third start for Alex Orgy. Still trying to find a spark on offense, and with the offense sputtering, they decided to make a quarterback change. He had a couple of balls batted down, and protection issues in there. And at that point, Sharon decided, hey, let's see if Jack Tuttle can spark the offense. And to his credit, he was able to spark the offense. So, he was able to come in and able to complete some passes, was able to make some things happen with his legs too. So got things done in both phases of the game. But of course, in the second half, after leading three straight scoring drives, the turnovers wound up putting the offense in a bad way, and ultimately that was a hole they couldn't dig out of.
Yeah, it was just this to watch this team sort of rally behind Tuttle, and that touchdown pass he had to Colson Loveland was just a great play, great find. He found the open All-American right there in the end zone. You really felt the momentum shift in this ball game. Ernest Hausman had that incredible interception, and then it followed by that fumble by Tuttle, and Michigan was just never able to recover after that. Alejandro, what were your views from the sidelines down there on the field?
Yeah, great atmosphere. Fun to be out here, experience Big Ten life out in Seattle. It feels like a team that's still looking for answers, right? And we're 6 games into the season at this point, 4-2. But it's the sort of thing where part of it's injury related, certainly at the quarterback position with Jack Tuttle. He told us in the postgame press conference that he's only been cleared full go for the last couple weeks. So Michigan didn't feel comfortable necessarily using him last week. Thought they might be able to use him this week as he had been cleared and had been full participant in practice. But as you look across the board, right, there's offensive linemen who were out, right? Dom Jadis was out. We saw him pregame with a brace on his leg. But beyond the personnel, it's a team that I don't know what Michigan can really hang its hat on right now, whether it's at quarterback position, offensive line position, defense has had some issues. It's a team that has a lot to figure out. And I think that's something that maybe looking at this team before the season, people underestimated how much they lost, how much transition there was. But there's growing pains that are bigger, I think, than anyone really expected. Those have persisted throughout 6 games, and they reared their heads tonight. It's when you're starting your third quarterback in 6 games, that's not a position any team wants to be in. When you're still making adjustments on the offensive line, part of that's injuries, but that's not a place you want to be in, especially when you've already replaced all 5 offensive line starters. There's just a lot of questions on this team, and those were very apparent on a Saturday night here in Seattle.
Yeah.
For me, I think that would be maybe the most troublesome aspect of the team. It's not that they have question marks. I think you could, anyone could see that when you lose that much from a championship team that you're going to have questions. It's that you couldn't accurately assess the questions. You can accurately assess them early enough, because the problem is that you are at this point in the season and you're sort of resetting. If you could have those question marks assessed accurately heading into the season, you could be working on them steadily over the course. So let's say it, not so much with Jack Tuttle because he was unavailable, make no mistake. But for instance, if you could have determined between, say, Alex Orji and David Warren, which one of those you could ride with the best, for instance, which one of those you were best suited based on your personnel, you could, start working on that from game one. Start working that process earlier in the season to kind of get as far along in the process with your offense, or that version of your offense, to kind of see, hey, you know what, get all of those pieces honed to the point where, you got a lot of those questions, a lot of those pieces of the puzzle figured out. And, unfortunately you don't, or maybe if Jack Tuttle is your guy, maybe that's not the case. Maybe it's fortunate that they started with Davis Warren. If Jack Tuttle is going to be your guy now, I mean, maybe that's the glass half full perspective, because I think at this point, and Josh, you would be being in a post-game press conference, and you too, Alejandro, it sounds like it's going to be Jack Tuttle moving forward. And if it's me, based on going to him in the game, I don't think you can go back to Alex Orji now. Like you got to stick with Jack Tuttle. Right. Is that kind of the assessment you guys got in the post game?
Yeah, Sharon Moore indicated that if he had to make a decision based on the performance, he would go with Tuttle. But still, he has to go back to the tape. But he did indicate that it's likely. It sounds like Tuttle is going to be the guy moving forward. And I do agree with you, Sam, saying that it might be a benefit that they did have Warren start the season, because at least they're going to be running the same offense, right? So it's really about seeing how that maturates into they got 2 weeks now to get this guy ready. It's just the fact that, and to continue what Alejandro was saying, we're having this conversation preparing for a third quarterback after the 6th game. This is just uncharacteristic of this program and what we've been accustomed to, correct? So it's just crazy just to see how this all materializing. But hey, Jack Tuttle sounds like he's the guy. Now let's just move on to the next step. Can they develop him? Because all the chips are still in front of them. That's what Sharon Moore indicated, and that's what his players said. The message is that to win every game from here on out. If they do, they'll be in a good place at 10-2 at the end of the season. So we just got to see how this sort of plays out. But right now, there's a lot more questions than answers, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a different offense is what you see. You saw how this from one game to the next, like in the USC game, you kind of saw how they were calling the run game. And then you saw in Minnesota game how it was totally different. Like there were no called QB runs. And then in this game, you saw how they called some QB runs, right? And even the commentators were talking about it. They're like, hey, but we can see how they were going to call. I bet you they called some QB runs. So you could tell it was a kind of a talking point. And then in the passing game, like this is a quarterback, in order for it to really work, you was like, man, probably going to want to attach like some RPOs to a lot of the run play, but that's not what they do. So for it to work for Alex Orji, you're shifting your thinking. Whereas for it to work for Davis Warren or for Jack Tuttle, you're more like what you were last year. And I think that's a more comfortable place that's a more comfortable play calling place for them. And I think based on how the season started and being farther down the line with, like I said, 3 games with Davis Warner, and then now you slide back into Jack Tuttle, this might be a rhythm that they could slide into, provided that, Jack Tuttle gets into a rhythm pretty quickly, maybe this could be something that they could build on here. Giving you the glass half full perspective, maybe this could be something that can give them a little boost, even though this was a loss coming out of this game.
Yeah, I think they did a better job with Jack Tuttle spreading the ball around, right? If you look down that receiving chart, Colston Loveland, 6 receptions, 33 yards. Donovan Edwards, they used him out of the backfield. They split him out wide. They used him in quite a few ways. Saw Morian Walker, right? He had an important third down conversion there. He actually had a step on another play later in the game that I don't think Jack Tuttle saw him. But you saw glimmers, right? You saw 3 straight scoring drives from Michigan offense. So, I mean, when's the last time that happened? I don't know if that's happened at any point this season. So you see the hope, and there's a reason Jack Tuttle was the number 2 guy for all of last year, right? He's a guy who's seen a lot of football. He's played a lot of football. He's been in this program for a couple of years now. He knows what he's doing out there, and I thought there were positive steps, encouraging steps. Obviously, with him, as it was last year, he got banged up on a quarterback keeper last year, right? That's not necessarily his fault. He got hit into a wall and whatever happened, but he's had injury concerns now throughout the offseason. So it's how healthy can you keep him, and how healthy can you keep him behind an offensive line that in that first half really struggled with pass protection, right? They improved in the second half, I'd say. Jack Tuttle made some plays with his legs. He kept plays alive. He scrambled for a few, but it's tough to keep a quarterback upright. It's a bad combination of things, right? When you have a receiving core that is young and developing, and you have quarterbacks who are not at the level of J.J. McCarthy, who's a top 10 NFL draft pick, and you have an offensive line that really struggles in pass protection. That's a trifecta that's really hard to overcome for any offensive coordinator, and it was too much to overcome for Michigan. They could string 3 drives together, but couldn't keep that up for a full game here tonight.
Yeah, man. He does give you a little bit in the run game. I mean, if you want to look at Glass, he gives you a little bit he gives you a little bit of the run stuff, because he pulled on a duo read, got a first down. So he gives you some of that. You got to account for him in the run game. He gives you some of the improv. You saw it on the Colston Loveland touchdown. So he gives you some of the dual threat stuff that can help make it go, that can help compensate for some of the issues on the offensive line, that can help extend some plays, that can help make some plays for a receiving core that doesn't always get open on its own. But it doesn't make up for the fact that he's got some limitations on that side of the ball, and that the defense at times is going to have to pick them up. And they did for a period of time, but they couldn't do it for as much of the time as they needed to in this game. I mean, in the crunch time, or in the crunch time period of the game, when they needed them to make some plays to kind of get it back for them, just couldn't quite do it for them. That's a lot of pressure to put on the defense, but that's the job, right? That's the job, right? And unfortunately, they couldn't get it for them in the end, fellas.
Yeah, and in a close game, you count on your defense to be your backbone, so to speak. Tie ball game, you get the boom turnovers, right? Houseman gets the interception and Tuttle with the fumble. Washington goes on and score, but it's not that Washington scored; it's how they scored. They ran the football on Michigan and scored. They didn't pass it like they did earlier in the game. They ran the football on them and scored, and that's what was concerning to me. And then they just, obviously, that's just not what we're accustomed to. I mean, I keep saying that, but man, is this, and then you get the interception. You keep putting the defense in a short field situation. They had to play perfect there. Obviously, they got the 2 penalties on the one play. The game was sort of already in doubt, but
you get off the field there. You get off the field there, and you got a shot. But again, that's just one of those deals where it's just not quite enough. Not quite enough for this team on this night. Too many mistakes, and that was just a microcosm. Those were the mistakes that the defense made. Majority of them were on the other side, of course, with the two turnovers, 2 costly turnovers. And like you said, especially right after you get the Ernest Houseman interception, who has been playing outstanding. But since the Texas game, I mean, you talk about a guy who's been playing lights out football. That was a tremendous turnover. And you feel like that's a momentum swinging play that's going to swing the pendulum definitively in Michigan's direction. So the defense is making, some really good plays, and you're seeing it's not like, Washington is putting up 500 yards in games, right? They got ball players on that other side, so you got to be able to capitalize on that if you're Michigan's offense. But unfortunately, turnover on the other side.
Yeah. I mean, that fumble just sucked the life out of the defense, I feel, after just getting an incredible play the possession before.
Yeah. It's Washington's a talented team, right? And I think we saw. If you want to look glass half full, you look at this Washington program and what they were able to do, given the amount of turnover that they had. Right? They took a team that went to a national championship, that lost basically every single contributor from that national championship team, that lost its entire coaching staff, and look, I think they're 4-2 at this point. They had the loss to Rutgers, they had the loss to Washington State, but you see the potential there and how quickly they were able to turn things around. They put up yards like this against every defense they faced this year, right? They put up 500 plus yards at Rutgers last Friday. They moved the ball really well against Washington State. I thought Michigan would do a better job. I thought their defensive line would be a little bit more dominant than they were able to be. But then again, when it comes to the fourth quarter, the plays that happened are the result of being put into bad situations twice in a row, right? This is a team it's a defense that part of the reason they were so successful last year, that there were two ingredients to that. Ingredient number one, they were one of the deepest defenses in the country, right? They could bring in Keon Sabb in the national championship game, and Keon Sabb played to the level of a starter. They're not at that level this year, right? Like defense, their offenses, whether you're looking at Texas, whether you're looking at Washington in the first half, they're looking at Jair Hill, they're looking at Zeke Berry, and they're looking at two inexperienced guys that they can sometimes make plays on. And Jair Hill has improved a lot, but he's not quite at that level that he's going to be at. So there's that, number one. And number two is that the offense isn't sustaining drives like it's been able to in previous years. And you're putting the defense in disadvantageous situations where it's short fields twice in a row. That's not a winning formula. So complementary football is, it's a cliche, it's a shtick, and it's all that. But at the end of the day, when you don't have the depth and you're trying to roll out the same guys for lots of plays, and offenses that know that they can go tempo, they know the areas they can target, they know they have to get the ball out quick, big plays happen and points happen. And that's what happened, right?
It's a great point because I can't remember if it was the last drive or the second to last drive. They started out the series with a lot of reserves in there, and they went right down the field. Then they came out there with Mason and KG and Josiah. Then they came back out there with all those guys. They were trying to give them a blow, trying to, get them refreshed. And as they were trying to do it, Washington went right down the field. And by that point, by the time you get them back on the field, now they're in the red zone. So, they just wore it out. I mean, that's not making it's just the brass tacks of it. It's not as deep a defense as they were. And if you are stressing them to the extent that they were getting stressed, whether it's short field situations or not sustaining drives, this is the result. And at times they did get beat at times. Let's make no mistake. There were times where those guys just got beat, where your best guys just got beat, or your best guys just made mistakes at times too. So there were those situations as well. So, hey, this was just, I do want to give Washington their credit. You did just have sometimes where best on best and their best won. So tip your cap to Jed and those guys. Give them their credit. There were plenty of time mention of they could be 5-0. I think they had lost their games by 3 points. They were putting up 500 yards in these games and making too many mistakes to win their games. Well, tonight they made fewer mistakes and they wound up winning this game tonight. So give them their credit. Meanwhile, Michigan, they got some things. You thought they had things to figure out before this game. They got even more things to figure out now. As they come home, you got some offensive things to sort out now that you've changed your quarterback. Come home and figure that out. Figure out your situation along the offensive line. Now that how long is Miles Hinton going to be out? How long is Dom Jadis going to be out? Is this your new line? Is this your new offensive line situation? On the defensive side of the football, we've seen some positions that looks like maybe some competition might need to sort some things out. There have been some letdowns at certain positions. Might there be some battles that might need to, some battles that might need to get some other guys moving up the depth chart. We'll have to see how that shakes out, because I know this, after the Texas game, there was some talk about, hey, is there going to be a shakeup at the linebacker position? And then all of a sudden, Ernest Hausman just blows up. Now, I'm not saying that was a result of them talking about competition. I'm just saying all of a sudden, Ernest Hausman just exploded. His play went from being over the first 2 games being like, man, I don't know, maybe they need to be talking about somebody else starting at the Mike spot, to now he's one of the best players playing on defense. Now, I'm not saying, I don't know if that's going to happen someplace else, but there are a couple of other positions along the defense where, hey, maybe they need to be looking around to see what they're going to do, because they've had some letdowns at a couple of other spots over there on that side of the ball. So we'll see.
We definitely know there's a ton of storylines as we go into the bye this coming week. Any last words here from you guys?
Yeah, man. Like I said, bye week, we'll let them have a chance to heal a couple of guys up, and then work on the Jack Tuttle led offense now, because like I said, I think this is to me a sign that this is his offense now. I don't think, if there was any thought that this was just a spook, just a spark or a boost, I think 3 straight scoring drives, I think probably put an end to that. I don't think you go back now. I think it's going to be him. So work on that in the bye week and come out of the bye week and see what he can do.
Yeah, I'd say a very, very important couple of weeks for this football program. Sharon Moore has obviously, you face a test after you lose to Texas, but Texas is one level of a program, and losing on the road to a team like Washington that again turned everything over, it's another thing. So you get 2 weeks, you can get healthy. You've seen, of 6 games of tape on what you have as your program, as what you have as your team. This is where coaches make their money, right? Well, what do you do in 2 weeks? How do you turn this? How do you turn the pieces you have into a puzzle that can contend for, maybe a college football playoff berth, but at the very least, take steps forward? Because at this point, there has been so much shakeup, so much turnover, whether it's injury related or not, that it feels like the car isn't fully in gear at this point, and you get a couple weeks to, knowing what you have, figure something out. So I'm very curious to see what this team looks like in 2 weeks, because they do have improvements that they have to make pretty much across the board.
All right, that's going to wrap up our coverage here from Seattle. For Sam, for Alejandro, I'm Josh, and this is the MichiganInsider.com.